Welcome to the Scottish Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host Chris, and here we'll be delving into the multitude of strange occurrences that happen within Scotland. Please contact us with your accounts at the Scottish Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Podbean or iTunes, and you can contact us by either means. Tonight's episode, we're on the Scottish borders with Becky, recounting stories of strange voices through the night, strange creatures, ghosts and shadow people. So sit back, listen in, give yourself some time to listen to some high strangeness.
Okay, so I thought I was 9 when this story took place, but I was actually 10. I remember it quite, that time was quite kind of memorable, as my paternal grandfather had passed away, like I think, it must have been in the January of 87. And they'd booked this holiday to Scotland. It was the first time we'd ever been to Scotland, as something new and exciting. And he never got to come, so he never got to visit Scotland with us. Mm-hmm. And when this happened, I was 10. I turned 10 in the July of 87. And another thing kind of memorable about this time, I think it was, what was his name? Michael Fish, the weatherman. Mm-hmm. He did the famous, "You haven't got to worry about the storm in October. It's not going to be too bad." And then when it actually happened, it was just like a massacre, you know what I mean? Just like, everything sort of blown.
A massive faux pas on his part.
Yeah. So that was kind of the other thing that stands out in my head with it. So we went to this holiday cottage. It's just outside of Langham, probably nearer Langham than Hoyk. You'll have to excuse if I'm getting the name pronounced wrong.
You pronounced that. You pronounced Hoyk right, that's it.
Oh, that's all right then.
Some people will probably say Haywick.
Haywick, no, Hoyk. Yeah, so we stayed there. It was, I'd say it was probably 10 minutes outside of Langham at the most. And it was, apparently, the estate that it was on was owned by the Duke of Buccleuch. Yeah. And this house called Begrains was the Duke's shooting lodge, apparently. I don't know if he still used it, but it was out for rent anyway.
Yeah.
So it was, the house was kind of off the main road, and then you probably have a good 5 or 10 minute drive again, through a couple of farms, and then you'd end up at Begrains. Now, looking on maps today, it seems like the road goes on further, but I think they were doing work kind of we stayed there a few times, and I think the last couple of times we stayed, they were doing works to extend the road. For what purpose, I don't know, but yeah.
Had the house been there for a while? I think it was like being attached to an estate. Was it like
it was. I wouldn't want to gather kind of how long, but we're talking about like an old cottage.
Yeah,
I'd say you're probably looking at, oh my God,
easy 100 years or something like that.
Easy, a couple of 100 years old, easy. I would have thought probably like one of the old stone, Scottish cottages. So like really, really picturesque. It was beautiful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to access it, like the car, you'd have to drive over. It wasn't exactly a bridge, but when they put like big, I can't remember what they're called, like almost like the massive drains just underground, so a stream can carry on, and then you've got like almost like a solid piece of road more than the bridge. You'd cross that, and then you'd park your car and you'd be able to go into this house. It was a beautiful place. It always had, I don't know if it was because I was just little. We're talking like 23 years ago nearly. It always had a real kind of bit of a strange air to it. Not necessarily anything horrible, just almost like it was felt like quite a magical place.
Do you think you pick that up when you're especially that age, or do you think it's a thing you pick up generally where, like, was your mum and dad pick up in that at the time, or was it mainly you that age?
Probably a bit of both, really. I mean, in the house itself, I know there was 2 bedrooms upstairs, and you've got a living room, kitchen, and downstairs there was, I don't know if it was like a second sitting room. I believe it was a second sitting room and not a 3rd bedroom. You sort of came out of the living room by the front door, and the entrance to this room was directly across it. And that room always had a really weird vibe. We never used it. It was almost like, I don't know, it almost felt like you were going into someone else's living room. And it was like uncomfortable. And my dad, he was a big fisherman up there. We used to store, it was a storeroom. So, you know, the multiple cans of beer and the fishing rods and, you know, shopping, everything would go in that room. And we'd use the rest of the house. And that was always the case. Whenever we stayed there, I probably stayed there 2 or 3 times. And this particular happening, if you like, I've got a feeling it was either the night before we were due to come home or, you know, 1 or 2 nights. It was towards the end of the holiday. And I had to share a room, like 2 single beds, with my grandmother. And we went to bed as normal. And it sounds daft now. I think I said in my message, at that time, I was a timid little soul, and there was no way I was going to go downstairs for a pee in the middle of the night. It wasn't going to happen. So my parents used to leave a bucket.
Definitely not at that age where
I was like, I ain't going down.
The darkness and the lights and all that. I had the same conversation with Timothy as well about that.
So we had a bucket at the top of the stairs, so if I needed to pee.
So you're slopping out and
slopping out. But knowing me, my dad would be using it as well, knowing him. Do you know what I mean? But that was our thing. So you'd have the landing light on, and I was asleep, and I was woken up. I wasn't, you know, I was asleep and something woke me up, and it wasn't like a sudden I'm awake. It was like, you know, if somebody was trying to wake you up, like, you know, they're doing to you like, Chris, and you were like, you know, you're slowly coming round. And so I woke up, and I was definitely awake. There was no doubt about that. And I was lay there, and I wasn't frightened. Honestly, I wasn't frightened. And I could just hear a little girl, definitely a girl, with an English accent, it wasn't Scottish, singing outside the house. And I think what makes it really...
What time do you reckon? Well, I know obviously you're young, it's probably a good bit. Was this like middle of the night time?
Yeah, I mean, the whole house was asleep, and it was during this storm as well we were having. That's the thing. Even at 10, I just thought, how the hell can I hear anyone singing out there?
And there's no houses running about you or nothing like that.
No. I'd say the nearest farm was probably, if you were on foot, 10, 15 minutes at least. And there's no street lights, nothing. And it was in the middle of this storm. So the little stream by the house was like really, really swollen, you know, ready to burst its banks. You'd got the wind howling through the trees. So to hear somebody singing, really they'd have to be belting it out. But at the same time, they weren't. There was just somebody singing naturally, but I could hear it. And I think so much thinking about it over the years, thinking, oh God, it's really weird. I mean, it was only recently I thought they weren't Scottish. That's like, you'd expect it. It's a little Scottish state. They weren't Scottish. They were English. So I lay there a bit thinking, obviously that's a bit weird. And I kind of did something that there's no way on God's earth I'd do now. I got out of bed because I needed to pee as well, and went to the window and pulled the curtain back. And there's not a chance you couldn't pay me to do that now. And I looked outside, and the night was like, it was black. It was you could probably see your own reflection better than you could outside. There was no lights, there was nothing, and all the time they were carrying on singing. So
it's absolutely mad.
It's really weird. And I went to the loo, still hearing the singing. Came back into the bedroom. I did try and wake my gran, and I think she'd had a bit of sherry, I will be honest. So I was like, grandma, ooh, go back to sleep, whatever. And so I thought, well, what do I do? I can't wake my mum and dad up because I don't want to get told off. She won't wake up. So, what do I do? So I got back into bed and lay there, still listening to this singing. And all they were singing was the word somewhere. That's all they were singing. And got back in bed. And eventually, I just fell back to sleep. And that was it. I've looked, probably I think as I've got older, it's one of the things, I've seen like odds and sods throughout the years, things that are a bit weird and stuff. But that's the one that has really kind of had the most impact on me, I think. Over the years, particularly like with the internet, I've kind of done searches to see if I could find anything about the area. Logically, as a little girl died in the area, and things like that. I did speak to my dad earlier, just saying, just getting the different things right. And I said, I mentioned to them, they weren't Scottish. And my dad said, well, actually, that's not that unusual for that area.
Because it's on the borders. It's a border area.
Yeah. So it's not, that it's not necessarily a thing. But there could not have been anybody out there.
Not that time of night. I mean, I understand as well when you were saying
not in the weather conditions
about how, as I said to you when I was talking to you via text before, with being that black outside. I've had that before when it's that dark that you can't see nothing. You can't see a foot in front of you. It's like crazy.
No, I can't even remember there being like any moonlight.
Did you have a fear at the time when you heard this, or were you just thinking it was different in a sense where you wanted to
it was just weird. I wasn't scared at all. I can't say I had there's no negative feeling about it. I can't say I wasn't enjoying it, but there was nothing horrible about it. But I just knew it was odd. It was kind of, it shouldn't be happening because there was no logic to it at all.
Did you tell your parents the next morning?
I did, yeah. And I mean, I've like over the years, I've begged them. I said, did you set anything up? Did you leave a radio? Is there anything? Have you trolled me a little bit when I was little, just for a bit of excitement, a bit of fun? And they've always insisted they haven't. But if they had done that, I don't know how they would have done it. Because I mean, you're talking 1987's the sign of tape recorders and
you've got TVs. If you've got a TV, you probably had like 3 channels or 4 channels.
Oh yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, I can remember like making radio shows when I was little, like messing about, and you'd press like the record and play on your little recorder, and the playback wouldn't be that good. You couldn't have put anything outside in that weather anyway.
No.
And kind of it was so clear. It was so clear, but it wasn't coming from in the house, because that's one thing I thought, well, could it be in the house? But as I left my room to go to the loo, and obviously the door shut behind it, it kind of went quieter. And when I went back into the bedroom, it was louder, and it wasn't from within the bedroom.
See, thinking of that as well, it was just actually yesterday, and it's funny you saying that as well. Maybe your parents didn't hear it. Maybe you just heard it. Maybe you're the only person to hear it. It was.
I think I was.
My wife had done a thing on her phone. It's like, so people below a certain age. It was like a thing on a phone, or a thing in YouTube or something like that. It said below a certain age, or above a certain age, can't hear this noise, and the noise went, and I couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it, and I know the kids are like that. And the kids are all holding their ears because they could all hear it, but we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, it's like those things they put outside shops, and it to stop teenagers congregating, like
totally. And I do believe that children pick up and so much stuff. You know what I mean? And then they'll reach a certain age, and then it tends to go. I mean, and I do believe that. I mean, I do think that like people are more sensitive when they're younger.
Yeah.
Aye, totally. Aye, mad story. I mean, absolutely mad.
I would love to have a bit of, you know, I know I'm never going to find out sort of who or what it was.
In terms of investigating, it'd be interesting to see if you went there and you asked about the house, or I mean, that's like the main estate. They might know something. I mean,
I've never even thought about doing that. I think probably part of the thing that will put me off it really that they might think I'm slightly insane, but you know, there's worse things.
To try and get people to open up to you in general terms, anyway, it's hard, and it's hard to try and talk about it in a certain way to total strangers. And
I thought you don't know what you're probing, do you? You know, like, oh, have you had a tragedy involving a young girl? Oh my God, it's my granddaughter. Oh God, you know. So but yeah, just the word somewhere over and over again, sort of very
just singing it somewhere.
Yeah, just like singing somewhere and going over and over again. It was really weird.
Weird. I wonder if it was trying to get you to come outside.
I mean, to be fair, it could have spent all night and there was no bloody I was going outside to give it its best shot, you know what I mean? I didn't get any vibes that I was being lured anywhere. Do you know what I mean? I didn't feel. I went to the window to look because I just needed to see. I needed to like
to see
what the hell was it? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I told all my family. I'm not sure they kind of. I won't say they didn't believe me, but I think they were probably a bit skeptical initially. But then over the next kind of 23 years, when I've kind of said that is what happened, I think that I thought I got bored by now if I was making it up.
When you look at the history, the amount of ghost sightings over the years, like right through, like just go back hundreds of years, you know what I mean? And every family's got a ghost story.
Oh God, yeah,
you know what I mean? And some people still dismiss it, you know what I mean? But they'll happily go to church and chapel and believe in spirits and whatever else and religions and whatever, you know what I mean? And they dismiss like things like that. But that was when I was talking to Timothy about some of the stuff that happened in my old house. I forgot about all that stuff, and a lot of us didn't even talk about that out with the family kind of thing. And then it was like when I actually started to go back and ask my sisters about it, then more stuff was coming out, and then it's mad.
But it's I mean we spent a lot of time in Scotland, and that house, that Begrains, was on it's a place called Bent Path. But over the years we went to another place called it was on the Wester Hall estate. And that was kind of apparently, according to my dad, it was like a really old settlement where there was a lot of cattle rustlers, and you had like a big mausoleum there with all like cow skulls chiseled into it and everything. And that was a weird place, and it wasn't far really. It was kind of maybe slightly in the opposite direction to where we stopped. And I know it was after the fact, obviously, you know, the awful events in Lockerbie. A lot of apparently there's a place called Windy Corner, and there might even be some people that know where I'm talking about. You'd go through Windy Corner on the way to this house. It was just called the Pink Cottage, and we got quite friendly with the gamekeeper of the estate. And he said, kind of on the night that that tragedy happened, he came round the corner, and the whole road was littered with suitcases. Like suitcases and people's belongings and all that kind of thing. And when we stopped at this Pink Cottage, it was a beautiful house, but it was really weird at night. Going outside at night at that place was proper khaki pants scary.
Was the Pink Cottage part of an estate?
It was the Wester Hall estate.
And was that pink as well?
Say again, sorry.
Was the actual house pink as well?
Yeah.
The main house?
Yeah. Possibly. I don't know. There's a Pink Cottage that was pink, which was on the Wester Hall estate, and then the other one was on Begrains was on the Duke of Buccleuch estate just down the road.
Right.
At the Pink Cottage. So you just going out at night. It was horrible. And I've stopped there kind of as an older person as well. Not an older person, but I stopped there kind of when I was little, probably 11, 12. And then I went back kind of with my now husband when he was my boyfriend, probably my early 20s. And it was always weird. And when you were in bed at that place, you would always hear like people moving around downstairs, although there'd be nobody, you know, everybody's in bed, but you can hear like cupboards opening and stuff downstairs. And yeah, that was a really weird place, kind of in the same area. Yeah, I stayed there with a friend, probably when I was about 11 or 12, and we saw a monkey in a tree.
A monkey in a tree? That's mad.
I know, it sounds really, really strange. We looked out of our bedroom.
Give me this story. So
we looked out of our bedroom window, and there was a few like little, well, not little trees. There was like a line of trees, and we were like, "What's that?" And we looked, and there was like, you know, I'm not implying it was kind of some sort of rogue Bigfoot that was lost or anything like that, because it wasn't huge. It was probably, oh God, I suppose comparing to my kids now, like, so an average sized 11-year-old maybe.
Yeah.
And it was swinging in the trees. It was like, yeah, it was very, very dark, very either black or very dark brown. And it was swinging into the trees, and it kind of swung round and like made eye contact with us. And me and my friend screamed because it, you know, it was a bit weird. And we ran downstairs to tell kind of, I think it was my grandmother and my mom, and they did think we were just taking the mick, you know. But yeah, that was something that, and we, you know, never saw anything like it before or since. But that was another weird place.
So even that where, like, if you look at it even theological standpoint, and what else could that be? You know what I mean? There's no good. What else could it be? You know what I mean? If you were trying to, if somebody was trying to logically look at it in a sense where the one that said it was anything no from here or whatever else, what else could you put in its place? Nothing. You know what I mean? We didn't get monkeys here. We didn't get.
Well, no, I suppose if you want to be like, you know, you wanted to kind of discount the paranormal, is there somebody with weird pets and one's escaped and we just happened to see it kind of marauding through the Wester Hall estate at that moment? But I don't know. It was a weird place. And on the back of the Pink Cottage, there was like a hill covered in trees, and there was an old derelict chapel up there, and it always fascinated us. And I remember on one holiday, me, my dad and my friend actually kind of beat our way up to it and, you know, actually visited it. I don't know what kind of the relevance of it was, but yeah, it's just a weird place.
Totally wild though, with the kind of monkey, Bigfoot, wee foot type thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like, yeah. So I've had like a random singing child and a monkey.
Absolutely mad. So what area are you from yourself?
So from the Black Country. So like living quite a hold house. We've got I think we've got maybe a few spooks of our own, but a few kind of a man who appears at the bottom of the stairs.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like a shadow man in a hat that we saw the first day we moved in. And we think there's a little.
How long have you been there? How long have you been in the property now?
We've been back coming up to 3 years. No, actually longer than that. About 4 years now. But it's I think it's a house that is really, really super friendly. And we think we've got like a kid as well, that occasionally will close doors on you and has thrown things round a couple of times. Sort of made me jump once. I told it off and it's not done it since. So that was all right. Calls my youngest name a lot. So my youngest, we've got an attic where we've got the computer and stuff.
Yeah.
My youngest is Vinny, and he's a bit upstairs and he'll Vinny, and he'll come down and say, "Who's calling me?" And I'm going to say, no. and he just gets. Oh, sorry, that's my Google for some reason. And he just gets really frustrated. You shout at me now, oh God, sort of thing, and stomps back upstairs. So I think this, like, if we have got a ghost, it's just taking the mickey out of him, really. Just winding him.
What was the kind of shadow person you seen with the hat? What was that? Can you go through that story?
Literally, when the day we moved in, and we didn't get in the house, so probably, it was a pain in the back. So it's about 4:30, 5 o'clock when we actually got in. Mm-hmm. So we piled kind of all the boxes in the dining room. And it was either on that night or the next day. Obviously, we got a few days off work because we just moved.
Yeah.
And me and my husband, I think the kids were at school, and me and my husband were in the dining room starting to unpack. And at the corner of my eye, I was like, oh, what was that? And Rich was like, what are you looking at? I said, I saw a really weird shadow then. And he said, oh, what did it look like? And I said, it was just like a shadow of a bloke. And bearing in mind, my husband, he doesn't have any time for this, really. He's, skeptical to the point of, nah, it's not, And he said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, I saw him earlier. And I was like, what?
Good.
And he said, yeah, I've already seen him. And then over like the next sort of weeks or something, you kind of saw him, also regularly, but, on and off. And it's just an average size bloke. You can tell he's wearing not a tall, I'd say a top hat, but not a tall top hat, like one of the smaller ones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what you mean.
And he always appears at the bottom of the stairs. You go down our stairs, and then you've got like the living room door off one hand and like the dining room door on the other, and he'll just appear at the bottom of the stairs, and that's where he always appears, apart from once when he's appeared outside our bedroom door, which weirdly enough is like it's directly above where he normally appears.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if
mad.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the history of the house or anything?
We've tried for a bit. We did have with my eldest son was having really bad night terrors. And he was saying that he was seeing like, oh God, these really weird shadow people that almost like the the shadow people you hear about, that kind of almost look like they're melting and they reform and everything.
Yeah.
And he was saying, oh, there's one and they've got like his arm or his hand will turn into a claw and he's going to stab me with it. Like really.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, oh, why don't you get somebody around that knows about that stuff? And I thought, I ain't got nothing to lose if they'll help, because he was really struggling to sleep.
What age is he when he was kind of having the night terrors?
He's 13 in a couple of weeks. So he'd have been about 9 or 10, I think. And he's always, to be honest, he's always seen, ever since we moved from our old house, which wasn't far away, I'd say probably 10 minutes up the road by car. He started off in the attic, and we had to take kind of all the pictures down, all the mirrors down, because he was seeing these things. And he's drawn, I don't know if I wouldn't still have the picture now, but he's drawn them. And I only describe them as being like really spiky and really weird things. But he sleeps in our living room. And he was seeing things there as well. But we kind of, I was talking to a guy about what was going on, and he offered to kind of do, not a spell, that's not the right word.
A cleanse or something?
Something like that, where he sent us an envelope, and it's got like this, I can't think of a word. It's like, I'm going to use the word spell. It is not a spell, but I can't think of a better term for
like
it.
Charm or something like that. Or,
yeah.
No,
and he had to keep that by him, and it would keep them away. And he's not seen them. Or, to be honest, say he's not seen them is a lie, but he doesn't see them most of the time. And when he does, they don't come near him. So that was weird. Thankful. And I don't think they're connected to like the things we've got in here that are great and they're really friendly. And I wouldn't change my house. It's like it's the only place I think I've ever lived that's really feels like home. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, my eldest, we went to a hotel in Shrewsbury, and it was, oh my God, what was it called? It was like the Prince Rupert or something. It was like quite a camp name. I think it was like, yeah, I'm going to go for Prince Rupert. And we went there on purpose because it was meant to be really haunted. And I was thinking, oh God, get us a haunted room, get us a haunted room. And we ended up in this room that was meant to be really, really haunted. I can't remember what by. And we didn't tell the kids because I didn't want kind of, tantrums at 1:30 in the morning that they'd heard a bump or something. So we didn't say anything. And the next morning, my eldest was telling me how he was watching like a shadow man, I suppose, climbing up the walls. And me and my husband were like, oh, blimey.
I just find it mad that kids like see these things. I mean, I can when I was younger, I can't remember seeing much, but I had a really, really bad fear of the dark, and it was partly being in the house I was and stuff. And then as I was talking to Timothy about it as well, about the house I'm in now, I feel quite comfortable in here. And I don't know if, you just kind of get a feeling about a place. And but my youngest he was the same. He was seeing. He had really, really bad fear of the dark. My wife's pretty much, she's not a skeptic, but she'd rather no believe. I mean, know what's there. And I'm no outwardly talking about anything like that to the kids or whatever. And he said he was seeing something black at the side of his eye, or he would get up and he would see something. And you could easily put it down to a trick of the light or whatever, as I said in the podcast the other day, Timothy. But then it was one morning he said he'd seen, as you were saying about the spiky thing, he said he'd seen it at the end of the hall. He said it was black, like a black kind of thing, and it looked like an octopus, and then it disappeared. And then after kind of that, I just will leave his light on. He sleeps with his light on, his door open. Like, we stay in a bungalow, so his room's adjacent to mine, so he's more comfortable with that now than he was before. But you could easily rationalise it and say it's a trick of the light or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was the one to, I never dwelled in it with him or whatever, but I just basically said, well, it's maybe just your eyes, blah, 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 and I'll leave the light on. If you need to come into your room, you can come into your room. Because I can remember when I was younger, and I used to have the fear of the night, and I'd be trying to get into my mum's room or whatever else.
Oh my God,
or have the fear of somebody turn your light off. You know what I mean? And it's just all that. It's mad. But as I said as well on the podcast, like I'd thought where I was sitting on the couch one night, and I basically just quickly pulled myself room in, and there are other rooms behind me, but it's an open kind of walk through, and I was sitting on the couch, and I must have forgot about something, and I said it in the podcast, I kind of spun myself around into the kitchen, the dining room kitchen. It was just all kind of open plan, and I kind of spun myself around, so I forgot to either turn the dishwasher off or something stupid. I couldn't remember, but it was something that just came to my mind instantaneously, and I spun round, and there was something in front of me, to the point where I apologised. I thought it was my wife. And I said, "Oh, sorry," and then there was nothing there. But then you rationalise that as well as it's a trick of the light or whatever. But I don't know, subconsciously at the time, I kid you not, I kind of thought to myself, I was like, "I've caught you." I mean, that's the first thing that came through my mind. It was mad.
I mean, I have actually got one more from really recently, if you want it. Not in Scotland.
No, it's okay. That's all right.
Right. Okay. I work at a children's home, and we've got we work with children with challenging behaviours. So children with autism and different things who for various reasons aren't at home. And some of my shifts, you don't have to, but you can sleep in. So you'll spend the night there. And one of the homes is a little cottage where you sleep in a single bed in a bedroom there. You're locked in the bedroom. Not for any sinister reasons, just for like your own privacy and all that. And the cottage, I think it's got quite a lovely vibe. I always feel very comfortable there. And this was probably about 3 months ago. And again, it was one of those weird things. It's probably the closest thing I've had to the little girl thing since. And I've told people at work, and some are like, oh, believe me, and other things like load of rubbish. But I can't stress how real it was. Mm-hmm. So I was laying in bed. I was facing a wall. So facing a wall. And I was woken up. I didn't wake up. I was woken up. Mm-hmm. And all I could hear were like keys jingling. And now I always leave my keys in the door. So if I need the loo in the night, all goes back to going to the toilet in the night, doesn't it? I know where they are and I can sneak out without waking anybody up, And so I could hear the keys in the door. And it sounded like the door handle was being pushed down. And my immediate thought was, oh, God, one of the kids, I forgot to lock the door. One of the kids is coming into my bedroom. Mm-hmm. And didn't scare me because, the kids I work with are brilliant. But I did kind of think, right, how am I going to play this? And we'll call this kid randomly. We'll call them Diane, for argument's sake. And so I was lying there, I was thinking, right, what am I going to do? And I thought, right, I'm just going to steadily turn my head over. So, like, I'm making eye contact with them and say, hello, Diane. And I felt I was on my side and somebody was leant over me. I could see out the corner of my eye, there was like, I suppose, a black shape. I could feel somebody looking at me. Somebody had their head bent over me. Mm-hmm. So I was lay there and I got as far as like, hello, and looked, and there's nothing there. Absolutely nothing there. So I got my phone that I have in bed because I listen to podcasts when I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
I had my torch on and shone it over the room, and the keys were in the door. The door was shut. Everything was as it should be.
Wow, that's mad.
It was really, really, really weird. And I think, and it always makes me think back to strange familiars. When like really mental things happen, and you think, you'd be running down the street screaming in your pants, but no, you go back to sleep. Do you know what I mean? And I did. I turned over. I went back to sleep. And what was even weirder is I woke up. I forgot about it. For probably about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I only remembered it when me and my colleague were in this house because the young person had gone away for a home visit and we were talking about stuff. And I was like, oh, my God, I've just remembered what happened to me the other night. And, from that point, sort of told everybody. But, yeah, just like, oh, right, okay, I'm just going to go back to sleep now and forget about it.
It's totally mad how you instantaneously rationalise it and then tend to just put it at the back of your mind.
Well, it was a big deal. None of us are getting out much lately. Mm-hmm. I think I may have seen a ghost or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was quite a big deal, but nah, just forget about it. And
I do think that mad with the black shapes and kids reporting it and all that kind of stuff. And when I was looking into when I started looking at chronologically stuff that happened in my old house, and I knew some stories, but I was like asking my sisters and stuff and going through it. And I even got to the point where I asked, it's in one of my later podcasts after when I done the Timothy, but it's because I got a bit of an update on the story about the house. And I managed to contact my neighbour as well. And I asked him, the same with the detached house I stayed in. So I said, did anything happen to you next door of that? Because he had sisters and that as well. So he got back to us and he said, I've asked the sisters and stuff, and they said, no, nothing happened in the house next door. She said, but they said in the last house they stayed before they got there was a black thing standing at the bottom of their bed. And it's just like, it's mad. There's like the people are just loads of people seeing these things and just.
They seem to like bottom of the bed, don't they? I know when I was really little and lived in sort of like the first house I ever lived in with my mum and dad, and I'm not saying these are actual things that actually happened. Do you know what I mean? But they're things that are kind of I remember.
Yeah.
On 2 occasions, I couldn't tell you how far they were between. I couldn't tell you how old I was, apart from maybe saying I was below 10.
Mm-hmm.
Waking up and seeing a cowled figure. And the only
figure?
like
A what figure?
like cowled, like in a robe.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't say monk as such, to be fair. That's probably not accurate. The only thing, oh my God, I don't know if you've ever, I can't remember which film it is. It was, like one of the Christmas Carol films.
Yeah.
And I can always remember, the Ghost of Christmas is to be, or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was like a really freaky, you could never really see his face. I think right at the end, maybe you saw his skull and you saw his bony hand, but he was dressed in like just, looked like he got a big blanket put over him, really, but you could just sort of see where the face was meant to be and stuff. Mm-hmm. They looked like that. Mm-hmm. And that happened twice. I remember on both times, I was frightened, thinking like, oh my God, and then just hiding under the duvet and waiting for it to get daylight.
That's mad. I mean, I've gone back to the whole thing with kids again. I think like that they just perceive these things differently, and like through the veil or whatever, you know what I mean? And then you
just got less crap cluttering in your mind.
That's probably it. And that you saying that, right? And I was thinking the other day about it, and I was like, well, why did because I've not really seen much in my lifetime. Like when I was younger, like as I said in the podcast, I was supposed to have seen something in my room when I was younger. I mean, below 5, and I used to always say there was a tall man with a suit and dark glasses, and I used to say he was there quite a lot, and it used to totally freak my mum out. But I was like really young, and my sister, they can to the point where they can all really remember it. I mean, like my sisters, my mum, and all that kind of stuff. And my mum's deceased now, you know what I mean? But it was like that was a story I could remember it, you know what I mean? But they used to say I used to see some in my room, see it like when I was about in this thing. But I was thinking the other day, if that was a thing that I seen, the black thing, like when I spun and seen it, the reason did I see it at the end because my mind was blank and I wasn't really thinking. It was like an instantaneous thought I had in my head, and I kind of spun round with nothing else in my mind.
Yeah, seeing things out the corner of your eye. I've always seen things out the corner of my eye.
Ah, totally. Aye.
Forever.
Well, I understand that. So I mean, it's like the amount of people you see these wee things or whatever, and you just rationalise it or put it by. I think most people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people probably will maybe, like ourselves, maybe dwell on it and try to suss it out or try to work it out that more than some others. And it's like my wife she'd be the first person to just try and like blatantly no want to look at it any further. But I mean, there's that much kind of stuff out there, and there's that much stuff out there that, like, some of the stories that I relayed, it was a case of we hadn't really talked about any of them to anybody. As I say, I think everybody's got stories, and it's just who chooses to actually tell them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every family's got something.
Yeah. I mean, although the amount of stuff I've seen and living where we live, I'd still consider myself to be quite skeptical. I know that probably sounds really.
I'm the exact same. I mean, I need to. I'm the exact same. I think I'm I don't know what's the word for it. You know what I mean?
I know what I've seen. I know what I've heard.
A skeptical believer. I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, open-minded skeptic. Is that like But yeah, but I'll have to see if I can think of anything more Scotland related. I'll to be honest, I know my dad actually think that he stayed in like an old scout hut in Scotland, and I can't remember where that was, but that was really freaky, and my mum's quite skeptical, and I know she experienced a few things there, so I'll have to see what I can dig up for you. Yeah, I'll keep in touch if there's anything else weird.
Thanks very much, and it's been really nice speaking to you, and I'll keep in touch. All right.
Okay, mate. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.